Hi, well, we've got a real morning to show you in the YouTube that's coming up. We started the morning on Westminster Bridge talking to the junior doctors on strike there. We then went down to South London to have a look down at Tooting, and then we spoke. There's a very interesting interview at the end of the YouTube with a mum, a researcher and a junior doctor, and you can see how those sort of three bits coincide to make, from her point of view, the new contract untenable. So that's really worth a watch. My upshot, what do I really think? I don't know. It's a real mess. The junior doctors are crying out this, saying, please talk to us. And it just seems to me to be completely balmy, frankly, that Jeremy Hunt, and it probably is not even him anymore, it's probably Nick Seddon and all the rest of them at number 10, David Cameron, who was saying they're just going to dig their heels in and they're going to say we're going to impose the contract. The interesting thing will come, of course, in the end of April, when the trusts have compared the new schedules with their rosters to see where the gaps are, and it'll be interesting to see if any chief executive breaks ranks and makes the outcome of those dry runs public, because if they do, I mean, it could actually blow the whole story wide open. So an interesting morning. I'm in just in the cut of the Old Vic now, in a street market, very much on my old home turf, really, one way or the other. And I hope you enjoy the people we've met this morning in the interviews that we've done. Let us know, retweet this please, and send us a tweet. Tell me what you think. Bye now. Well, good morning. Here I am again, Roy Lilley, on, as you can see, Westminster Bridge, Big Ben in the background, and the Houses of Parliament through the trees there. I'm back to talk to the junior doctors who are on strike again today. Come and see what they think about the latest developments. The contract is now being published, of course, and they know what's in it, so we'll see what they think about it. And of course, there's the equalities assessment, which has caused a shed load of aggravation as well. So it's freezing cold. I don't know why they can't have a strike in the summer, but there you are. Let's go and talk to them. Now, because when it rains my hair goes frizzy, I look such a mess. Look, if you look down here, you can see this is where the junior doctors are. Come down with me a bit more. Come, walk this way. Got a very dozy cameraman this morning.
Oi!
Right, here we are. You can, let's have a look at the numbers of junior doctors. Just look down that way. You can see the numbers on here, and in front there's the world's press that are busy taking photographs. Everybody's looking very gloomy. So we're going to go and find a couple of junior doctors to talk to, and we'll broadcast live whatever it is they tell us. So just hang on 1 second while we realign, and we'll be back in about 30 seconds. I'm back on the picket line. You can just have a little look round. You can see there's how many we got here this morning?
About 100 now.
Up to about 100. Okay, back this way. I've got a very dozy cameraman this morning, not very bright at all. It's all right for you lot watching this in your nice warm offices. We're out here shivering. Right, got junior doctor here. Just tell us who you are.
So I'm William Turner. I'm a junior doctor.
Okay, well, you're not actually a very junior doctor, are you? You're quite a senior junior doctor.
No, I had a tough paper round. Played too much rugby. No, I'm a 31-year-old fourth year trainee. 8-9 years at university, 4 years into my academic training now. Yeah, and still very much a junior doctor, and I will be for about 6 more years.
Okay, fine. So, I mean, that does redefine junior, doesn't it? But never mind. So, we spoke last time when we were on the picket line. Okay, you've been on strike. Jeremy Hunt has imposed the contract. You've achieved nothing.
I think we made great strides in the terms and conditions and the renegotiation of the contract after our first bit of industrial action. We made good progress. It's disingenuous of the government after our second industrial action to turn around and they're going to impose an unfinished contract after such great strides have been made in making the contract workable, safe for us, safe for patients.
But when there is, just to sort of put the other side of the story, we've now got the contract which gives the schedules this week, or until by the end of April. The trust now have got to match rotas against schedules. wouldn't it be better to wait to see what the outcome of that exercise is before you decided whether it was safe or not? Or are you sort of jumping the gun?
No, I think having had all the information available to us, the terms and conditions, the working rotas that the Department of Health have already released that are just completely unworkable, not workable by human beings. They may look all right on a spreadsheet and balance the books, but they're certainly not anything that any of us would be able to work in a safe and efficient manner on the front line. We've looked at the terms and conditions, we've looked at the equality assessments that the government have released, and we've deemed them all unsafe and unfair. They're not finished documents.
Let's talk about the equality thing, because that is quite interesting. There's a little sort of legal subtlety there, isn't there? The government has to do the equality assessment. It doesn't have to equal equality. It doesn't have to have equality right through it. The law actually says if it isn't possible to achieve equality, you have to demonstrate how you've tried to attenuate it. The government is saying we've attenuated it by giving everybody, by rejigging how people are paid to give everybody a 13.5% pay rise. Yes, it will impact on women and maternity leave and some part-timers, but hey, that's just tough and we've got to get on with it.
So there's so many things to argue about that. NHS is one of the biggest employers.
We've got all day.
NHS is one of the biggest employers in the country, and 45% of our junior doctor workforce are women. So any even subtle impact on the working lives of women in the country is a massive impact. The government.
It's worth pointing out that we're almost now in some junior doctors' ranks. It's almost more women than men.
No, and you look at medical schools up and down the country. There are more women going into medicine. So it's going to be an increasingly female workforce. But a government that talks about being champions of equality, that releases an equality assessment document that openly acknowledges that there is a gender bias. There's a bias against disabled doctors, there's a bias against less than full-time workers, 85% of whom are women. And it's not just about reducing female pay, widening the gender pay gap all the way through every single strata of the medical life. It's about meaning that women who, even in today's society, provide the majority of home care, look after families, take time off to have and raise children, will be discriminated against because they won't be able to juggle these increasingly unsocial rotas. You talk about having a pay rise, a basic pay rise that's going to offset some of these discriminations. It's an 11% pay rise in the face of a 35% pay cut. The only way to make some of these rotas livable and workable, give people a salary that means that they can actually live and work a normal life, especially in London, is to work all hours around the clock, is to be working 1 in 2 weekends, is to be working nights in midweek. And women who already juggle family
There is a
lives,
supplement, isn't there, for people who work unsocial hours and in the pressure places like A&E and so on. You get a supplement for working there, but you wouldn't get a supplement if you were working in a chiropody clinic on a Tuesday morning.
No, but I think there's already a dearth of doctors going into those specialities. So there's already rotas that are being unfilled in A&E, in
So this is
general
pretty
practice.
much the same arguments that we've had before. Nothing very much has changed. What's the upshot going to be now? Because we're on the 26th. 26th of April. We're looking down both barrels of a complete walkout. Now that is I would say that's a big risk for you. Already some of the newspapers have been critical about the idea of that. I'm not too. I mean, we're standing here this morning on Westminster Bridge, people driving past, giving you a toot, saying well done. But you know, if you're going to stand here and watch ambulances come in with very sick people and turn your backs, do you think you'll still have public support?
I think so, and I think every member of the public you speak to, you say the press may be releasing articles that aren't particularly in our favour, but every member of the public that I speak to, every member of my family and friends that I speak to, are enormously in support because they understand why we're doing what we're doing. This goes beyond junior doctors' contracts, this goes beyond our pay.
Do you think you've become a lightning rod for general disaffection in the NHS?
Whether that's a lightning rod for general disaffection towards the government, that's throughout all strata of society. It's not just within the NHS. We're the sharp end of a big stick.
More political strike now. Do you think the longer it's gone on, it's become more political?
I think it's inevitably slightly politicised by the fact that we're fighting against agendas that aren't particularly clear from the government.
Yeah.
The manipulation of our rotas and our working conditions is just one aspect of an attack on the NHS as a whole, which is one of the main reasons why we can, in all good faith, stand here. Because we're not just fighting for Saturday pay, we're fighting for the future of the NHS.
Yeah. And the upshot, what's it going to be? I mean, Hunt is safe, I imagine, in post until the 23rd, which is the referendum. If Cameron loses the referendum, he's obviously going to lose the cabinet and probably lose his job. We're looking at another Secretary of State. After the 23rd, Hunt is supporting him in staying in Europe, so will he reward his mates, or do you think Hunt's going to get shuffled? I mean, it's widely rumoured he will.
He's a bit of a toxic asset at this point, and which is possibly a bit unfortunate for him, because he's the end of a big stick that's being held by Cameron. This is not just Hunt's agenda.
Yeah.
This is the whole government's agenda, and Hunt is the face of it. And he may end up becoming a scapegoat and being thrown under the bus.
I've got to say, I mean, the times that I've met him and spoken to him, we could have had a lot worse Secretary of State, but he has become, as you say, the face of the strike, and under all normal circumstances, he probably, rather like Michael Gove was shuffled when he had all the problems with the teachers. Gove was shuffled. Hunt hasn't been shuffled, but I think after the 23rd, who are we going to end up with the Secretary of State?
I think the only way that Hunt could really shine himself in any sort of favourable light now would be getting around the table and actually negotiating and engaging conversation with junior doctors. He's openly said he's willing to talk to any junior doctor at any point about any matter. And as far as I'm aware, from any Freedom of Information Act request that's been made, he hasn't sat down for a single hour with a single junior doctor to discuss any of this.
Well, that's the challenge. We're on Westminster Bridge. I'm quite sure there'll be people in Westminster watching. They usually do. So come and talk. Come down to the picket line and have a chat. And bring an umbrella, because it's raining and it's bloody cold. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate your time, and well, good luck.
Anytime.
Cheerio.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye now. That's Roy Lilley, Westminster Bridge. We're going now to Lewisham Hospital, and we're going to have a chat. No, we're not Lewisham. Where are we going?
St George's.
We're going to St George's Hospital and have a chat. Westminster, where it was absolutely freezing cold, to South London, where we've just managed to find some 4G. It's like the dark ages here in South London, to get some 4G so we could periscope. But actually the sun is out, blue sky, and I have another junior doctor. Tell us who you are.
Hi, my name's Dagan. I'm junior doctor.
I mean, where are you in your journey?
So I'm 33 years old. I qualified 2007. I am now a senior registrar in intensive care in a discipline called clinical pharmacology, which means I do research and assurance on drugs and drug therapies.
Okay, fine. So, well, here we are. This is about the 4th or 5th time I've done interviews on the picket line. Same old story. You get nowhere.
I don't think that's true, actually, Roy. I think if you look back at what the offer was back in October and where we've moved to, there's clear progress. Now, we've had imposition, which I think everyone agrees was a mistake from government, a bullying tactic. And I think we've now got overwhelming pressure on government to come back to the negotiating table, to work with people who want to provide healthcare. You got the Patients Association yesterday.
Well, we'll give you plenty of time. There's no rush, okay. Do you really think that Hunt is going to say, well, I was wrong, let's talk?
So I have to say, I don't think this has ever been about personal politics or a person. I think that the leadership of the government need to step in and make a decision to work with professionals. And whether that means Cameron or Hunt, I don't mind.
Hang on, let's look at the politics of this. We've got until June the 23rd, while we've got the big referendum which will define the future of not only our politicians but of the nation as well. I mean, nothing's going to change before the 23rd of June. We're looking down both barrels of a complete walkout on the 26th of April. Do you really think that people are going to turn their backs on ambulances turning up with really sick people?
Well, I understand why you phrased the question like that, Roy, but I think what we need to do is be really clear about what's happening at the end of April. At the end of April, the action that's being proposed is 9 hours where the care that's being provided in hospital is by consultants. Now, there are hundreds of consultants in every hospital up and down the country. They're more than able to provide that care. Now, I agree with you, there's going to be a huge knock-on effect to patients, outpatients, etc., and that is an issue that I am very sorry about. But the solution is simple. It's not to wait until some arbitrary date for a referendum or wait for some convenient time for government where it's a good idea to step back in and engage. It's to listen to people like the Patients Association, who yesterday came out and said that they were glad that the contract is being challenged.
The Patients Association is full of doctors.
Well, the
Patients Association has got Phil Hammond and Dr. Mike Smith and Sir Cecil, whatever his name is. I mean, they're all doctors.
They're not people who historically would stand behind doctors and say that doctors are always right and doctors are always
speak for patients.
I disagree with you. I think they've been strong advocates for patients from the beginning, and I think when you look at what Hunt's rhetoric has been all the way through, which is that he's a champion of patient safety, the fact that patient safety groups themselves, and respected ones, whether you agree with that or not, I think generally they are respected patient safety groups, are now coming out and saying that this needs to be challenged.
Okay, well, let's unpick some of the issues. Okay, so the implementation strategy is now asking trusts to rota against schedules, and we'll know at the end of April what and if the gaps are. Wouldn't it be better to wait until then to see really what your argument is? Because at the moment, you've got a contract, you say, well, it isn't fair and it's not safe, but we don't really know that, but we will know by the end of April.
Well, the government have set out a strategy for implementing, but for that to happen, it requires doctors to be part of the implementation process. There's no way you can rewrite rotas in a hospital without involving people who are in frontline services, and doctors are not going to engage in that process because we disagree with the contract that's being imposed that we see as being unsafe for our patients in the long term. So my view is that there is no way that deadline is going to be made, because there will be no one engaging in that process from a clinician's point of view.
Let's look at the secondary issue that's emerged now with the equalities assessment. There is, for people who are not familiar with the issues, just to rehearse some of those. Sure. The contract changes the way in which junior doctors are paid. They're paid now on the basis of some of it's about unsocial hours, but some of it's about where they are on training nodules and all the rest of it. It's complicated, but fundamentally it means that people who work part-time and women are on maternity leave and some other exceptions will not be around all the time. That means that they won't be in a position to accumulate the seniority that the contract requires. Now that could be described as being an inequality, and it is. The argument is that it prejudices people who are, for example, on maternity leave and so on. Now, the law requires that the equality assessment is undertaken, and the equality assessment has been undertaken, and it's saying yes, there are some people that will be prejudiced. The law says, what are you doing to attenuate that prejudice? And the government is saying, well, we can't, and in law they don't have to. They just have to demonstrate that they've addressed the issue, and they say overall the junior doctors will have a 13.5% uplift, reorganising the existing pay envelope, and that attenuates any disadvantage. Right now, I think that's a sort of a brief and as fair as I can do synopsis. I mean, sure, at the end of the day, you're just going to have to accept the fact that not everything is equal.
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is that equality doesn't mean treating everybody the same way. It's about recognising everybody's contribution and designing a system that appreciates that. Now, the reason that we need to challenge this is that, first of all, I don't agree with the assessment that the government have followed the law. You know, I'm not a lawyer, and I take that we're going to see those arguments played out in court. But let's look at what our leaders have said. I mean, the government are very fond of telling us that they have a mandate to provide a 7-day NHS. They're not so fond of telling us how they're going to pay for it, or who's going to be doing the work. But the other things that they said were, for example, David Cameron said he will eliminate the gender pay gap within a generation. He will be a champion of equality. And he stood up in very prominent places and made these speeches. And yet, with the other hand, he's bringing in a contract, and you quite rightly describe the equalities impact assessment. Let's remember who made that. That's government. The government's own document assessing the equalities impact says that there will be adverse effects to women and people working less than full time. It says that any adverse effect on women is a proportionate means to achieving a legitimate aim. Let's just think about what that is saying in 2016 in the United Kingdom. That's the UK government pulling out that line. That's not Donald Trump standing on a stump speech and saying we can treat women how we like because it achieves the end for my business. That is the UK government saying it's okay to legitimately discriminate against women because it's achieving an aim. And that aim is purely what they wrote on the back of an envelope in the run-up to the last election. 3 words, 7-day NHS. Now, 7-day NHS might have won them votes, but in an unfunded and unplanned system, which we see as dangerous, the only way they can ram it through is to discriminate against women. And I won't accept that in 2016. This is Europe's biggest employer. UK should be a beacon, a shining light of equality, and to suggest we're going to bring in a contract that directly discriminates against women is disgraceful, and I will fight it.
Okay, so are we going to meet here again on the 26th, do you think?
I hope not. I really hope not. Now, I think throughout this, I'm sure everyone you've spoken to has said that doctors don't want to be on strike. Doctors don't want to be out here. We want to be inside looking after patients. I just hope that what we can do by having these kind of conversations is show that we really care about moving forward, and that the only way to do that is to work together. But that actually we need to be honest. We need to have an honest debate about healthcare in this country. We need to say, what kind of healthcare can we afford? What are we willing to fund? And then how are we going to provide it? Because simply saying it's 7 days and ramming it through is not good.
We've got to wrap up.
Yeah.
Just tell me, what do you say to the 5,000 people who've been bounced off the waiting list today because you're on strike? The 12,000 people who've already been bounced off the waiting list. So we've got nearly 20,000 people who are sitting at home worrying about when they're going to have their hip operation or the cataract done or whatever. What do you say to them?
So I say I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this inconvenience is happening, but the fault lies with government in not engaging with us. And the other point is that 70,000 operations were cancelled last year purely because of lack of beds and lack of staff. You know, operations are cancelled.
So what are you saying? A few thousand more don't matter?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the problem here is an underfunded and poorly planned system, and that actually the risk isn't 1 or 2 days of junior doctor strike. The risk is the introduction of a contract that leads to huge gaps in rotas, doctors being stretched out, more cancellations because there aren't enough staff, and a collapse in an unfunded system where we've got record deficits up and down the country.
There you go. That's the voice of junior doctors in South London. Again, I've come now. We've done Westminster this morning. We've just done St George's, and now I'm outside Tooting Broadway railway station, tube station, where we've got some junior doctors that are giving out leaflets and getting a lot of support. This is Cheryl, who has been a junior doctor, I think, for 13 years. Is that right?
Years.
She's a mum and a part-time doctor, so it's interesting that the inequalities issue will affect her. Tell us about how it will.
So just to be clear, I've done a period of out of training, so I've been doing a research degree, so I've been doing a PhD and had time out for maternity leave in the past 5 years. I work less than full time. On the other days that I don't work at the hospital, I'm doing my research, which is unpaid, and I also look after my children 1 day a week. So this contract effectively is penalising those working less than full time, because it's taking away your automatic yearly pay progression that we used to have. What that means is anyone who works less than full time, the academics, okay, people that contribute to childcare, so the majority of women, they will no longer be receiving the same hourly rate of pay as their equivalent of working full time. So you're going to have an absolute inequality on your hourly rate when you're doing the same exact job. So how is that fair?
So that's a very succinct, I think, upsumming of what is the sort of the niche issue in the equalities assessment that is kind of quite hard to tease out. Now, if I said to you, well, look, that's your choice, that's the way you want to develop your career, there will always be inequalities. The answer is you're having a 13.5% uplift in your basic pay. The government have done everything they can to attenuate it. Tough.
First of all, I'd argue that it's not a pay rise. 30.5% basic pay, but cutting the huge proportion of our pay comes from our out of hours work. So the fact that they're cutting that is actually we get a pay cut, not a pay rise. Second of all, we work less than full time for many reasons. So in my case, I've been doing a PhD and doing academia, which is why I've been also less than full time. We should be encouraging our future clinical scientists of this country, where we're meant to be actually developing our best and moving the barriers of medicine and developing the best doctors we have. We need to have evidence-based, and to do that we need to continue our research. How else are we going to improve our care for our patients? So we should be encouraging doctors to go into research rather than penalising them for actually having, we don't earn as much doing research, but we go into it because it's the best thing for our patients and for advancing our profession. How is it fair that we penalise against these exact people?
There you go. I think that's the argument. Very, very well put. I'm now going to get on a tube and get back in the warm. Bye-bye. Okay, well, I'm in a restaurant, just had lunch and just kind of warmed up. What do I think? This is ludicrous. We've got 54,000 or whatever it is junior doctors the backbone of the health service, and these aren't junior doctors. Don't think it's just about youngsters that have just joined the medical profession. These are people who are nearly at consultant grade, who we've just completely, frankly, hacked off with this contract. And yes, the BMA have behaved very stupidly, and I think their leadership has been poor. And yes, I think Jeremy Hunt is found himself in a cul-de-sac with promises from the election, manifesto promises that delivering is ludicrous. Both sides have communicated badly. Do you know what? This is madness. I've spent all my life in business. This is not the way you treat your staff. And I guess if there's a message from this is, I hate to say this because I think he's a good guy basically, but Jeremy Hunt, I'm sorry mate, but you've got to go. And David Cameron, you've got to pull your finger out, because hitting the NHS with a bigger stick isn't going to make it work any harder. You'll just break the stick.